topic is going to be, sorry about that. It's going to be sustainable organizations. And today, James and I are going to be talking about fundraising for social skateboarding, specifically how to use your communications tools to spread your message far and wide, and how to grow and engage your donor base at the same time. This is just a reminder that we will be recording and sharing the session, so you can turn off your camera if you don't want to be on film. We also encourage you to freely use the chat, and we have some of our other staff in the chat as well, so they can answer some questions. And for time considerations, we are probably going to leave the majority of questions for the end of our presentation. So we can get started on the agenda for the day. We on to it? All right, so Rhiannon, if we go through to the day's agenda. Awesome. So yeah, what today's going to look like, we're going to be doing a little 10-minute introduction on how to run a successful fundraising campaign. After that, we're going to do a poll on the direction of the presentation, because we really want to make sure we're making it as relevant for you guys as possible. After that, we're going to do a deeper dive into the chosen topics, then a breakout room activity, and we'll end with a group discussion and some questions and answers. All right, so in terms of running a successful fundraising campaign, I'm going to be talking about, oh, actually, you know what? I went really quick through the introductions. Just so everyone knows, I'm Alyssa. I'm the communications officer at Skateistan, and my coworker James is the development officer. And so today I'm going to be talking about the communication side of things, and James is going to be talking about fundraising and development side of things. And so now we can get back into the aspects of running successful fundraising campaigns. And so you can really think of running a fundraising campaign as kind of like a small snapshot of your regular year of fundraising for your organization. Broadly speaking, we can use communications tools to accomplish a set of goals and talk about our work and impact in order for supporters to donate money towards us being able to prove our impact. This is what every nonprofit organization does throughout every year. And we thought that using a campaign to focus on communications and development concepts would be a really helpful way of explaining how all these pieces actually kind of fit together and how you can use these tools to create your strategy for the year. We'll also paint the picture and explain how the more that you can align your communications and your fundraising initiatives, you can really increase your performance and your fundraising goals from year to year. So of course, Skateistan is not a new organization. We've been around for some time now. We've been fundraising for over 10 years. So of course we have more resources than a small skate organization just getting off the ground. But I think there are really some important takeaways that no matter the size of your organization need to be taken into account. I think some of these things are like website creation and a way for your supporters to really easily donate to your cause. You're going to want to reach out to as many media outlets and your connections as possible to try and spread your message far and wide. And you're also going to want to create a social media presence and tailor your message to your different audiences. And you're going to start to use tools like newsletters to reach all of your supporters and your donors. So we've kind of come up with a bit of like a secret sauce on what our fundraising campaigns are comprised of. And every campaign, we are going to make sure that we have some really creative and easily identifiable branding. We are going to create a campaign page where all of our supporters and donors can find all of the information they need about our campaign and a place where they can easily donate. We're going to always get as much press coverage as we can for every campaign that we run. We're going to send out around like 1 to 3 newsletters throughout the course of like a 6-week campaign. We will do social media promotion as well as some like influencer and VIP outreach. We also do Google and YouTube advertising, as well as sometimes we do a live call with donors. We send an email campaign out to existing donors, and then we're going to create many, many assets and things like short films that we can use to promote the campaign during that 6 weeks time. So these are all the tools that help you spread your message as far and wide as possible to as many donors as possible. And then we see how the money comes in.
Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, hi guys, I'm James. It's so cool to see so many of you. I think I know a lot of you, so yeah, thanks so much for coming. So I started with Skateistan as a volunteer in 2017. So I've now done, I think, 9 or 10 fundraising campaigns with Skateistan. So yeah, as Alyssa said, we've got quite a good formula that seems to work very well for us. Yeah, I'm really happy to be able to share like all of our lessons, because we've also had lots of challenges along the way, and we've finally found something that really works. So there are 3 stages essentially to a campaign. Obviously, probably the most important one is all of the prep work that comes in beforehand. And if you get this part right, then obviously it makes it so much easier if you've got the right assets that you can share with donors, for example. If you've got the correct information about your donor database. So maybe you're using like Excel spreadsheets to track how each donation is coming in. And it's really important to look at the different ways you can categorize your donor base. So we tend to look at, obviously, kind of monthly giving. So we have a monthly giving program, the Citizens of Skateistan. Then we look at donors who are more likely to give during campaign times. So we'll have 2 campaigns throughout the year, normally with 6 weeks duration. And we also have high value donors where we'll make an ask. And that's normally for us, that's around the 5,000 or 10,000 level. So we just have a handful of those donors, but it's very important to obviously tailor your approach to these donors. So one really key bit of information is that before you make an ask for money during a campaign, you want to make sure that you're checking in with your donors throughout the year. So ideally, you want to do kind of 2 engagements or nudges where you're not asking for money before you actually make the ask during a campaign. So for us, this could be anything from like a new media piece that's come out that we want to share, or a new video that we've put together that we would share. We share our annual report each year, which is a good kind of excuse just to reach out and give extra information to your donor base. So yeah, having these kind of friendly check-ins just kind of makes it a more balanced relationship between you and your donor. So it's not just a one-way kind of give us money. Another thing we do is obviously make predictions so that we can be quite certain about the amount of money that we would expect to be getting. We use what are called gift charts. So on the right here, you can see an example. It's obviously quite high for us, but say if you're trying to raise 10,000, it just shows you how you can break down this amount into more manageable contributions. So for example, if you're doing a $10,000 campaign, you might have 1 donor at the $2,000 level, you might have 2 donors or 3 donors at the $1,000 level. And then from there on, it gets the number of gifts per amount will come down. So at the $100 level, for example, you might have 10 or 20 donors to make up the final amounts. So just being sure that you can accurately predict these amounts before you start really helps. So for us, for example, we'd normally know around 70 or 80% of the money that we would be expecting during the campaign. So we just look at giving patterns, we look at past campaigns, like, oh, so-and-so gave us 5,000, so-and-so gave us 2,000 at this time last year. So we can reasonably expect, hopefully, if we've done our job right, a similar amount. And so during the campaign, you want to make sure that you're sharing with your network as widely as possible. So this includes, newsletters, email asks, even just WhatsApp, it's a more personal relationship, and of course, social media to kind of mass market donors. Having kind of an incentive to motivate the giving with these equivalents can really help. And it's something that works very well for us, and it makes it more tangible for the donor as to what the impact may be. So for example, one of ours is $20 can allow a child at Skateistan to attend 2 sessions of Skate and Create. So with these, you want to try and give a bit more information about the impact, as well as providing light on aspects of your programs that the donor may not necessarily know about. So try and make it quite an emotive equivalent, and not just just the fact. Try and add a little bit of extra things to it. Obviously, as the donations are coming in, it's really important to collect all of that information, especially email addresses and countries from where they're from, which can be used to segment donors at a later stage. And another thing we try and do is be as adaptable as possible. So during a campaign, Alyssa and I, as well as the team, would meet, I think it's once a week or twice a week, and we'd look at the information that we were collecting, and we'd make little tweaks or changes as we go. So say something isn't working very well, we drop it, or something's being really successful, then we try and increase that. An example of this, I think it was last campaign, was that we noticed on social media, for example, that we weren't getting like our expected donations for social media, for Facebook and Instagram. So we created kind of smaller gift equivalents, so like $5, $3 to $10. And we found that was able to give us a bit more traction, for example, on social media. So just little things like this that you can kind of come together and have a look at. Obviously, as you're going, you want to be thanking donors. If you can set up like automatic thank yous, maybe you have a system that does this for you. There are lots of good ones, and I can recommend some if you reach out to me after, of course. Another thing to think about is like tax receipts for the donations. Do the donors need a tax receipt? Often, especially in the US, it's a very good incentive for people to give towards the end of the tax year, knowing that they can claim it back. After the campaign, it's super important to do all the analysis. So you can see here on the right is some of our kind of like the metrics that we would look at. So the revenue category is basically like where the money came from. Did it come from our high value donors? Did it come from our corporate donors? Did it come from our citizens of Skateistan, or just individual donors? And on the right, we would look at like first-time donors per country, for example, so that we know and we can compare kind of our impact in various places as we go. So those are the kind of the main stages, and just kind of a snapshot of the things that we'd be looking at doing throughout those stages. So hopefully we've got a poll now, and hopefully you've got a bit more information about an area that might be interesting to you that we can look at. So there'll be one for Alyssa with her communications pieces, and also one on the fundraising side with me. So yeah, question 1 is the comms one, and question 2 is the fundraising one. So please make a choice.
We give it another moment. I think that might be everybody. Oh no, some are still coming in. All right, giving it 5 more seconds to finish the poll. 3, 2, 1, finishing. All right. Now I can share. Yeah. Nice, interesting. Okay, so 12 people chose, for me, they'd like me to focus on talking about social media tips and tricks and digital marketing. And then for James, James will go into diversifying funding streams, collaborations, new asset classes, peer-to-peer fundraising, high value donors, individual giving, and corporates. Awesome. Cool. So, Rhiannon, that's gonna be the number 2 focus. Nice. Awesome. Cool. So most of you focused on or wanted me to focus on this number 2 here. So communications focus 2, social media tips and tricks and digital marketing, and Google for nonprofits. So in this section, I'm going to be talking about finding your personality on social media, who are your audiences, and how do you tailor messages for them? How to create a content plan that combines strategy with being reactive, what channels are going to be the best for engagement and actually soliciting donations, and Google for nonprofits. First of all, what is it, and yay or nay? All right, so which social media channels have the most engagement? So Instagram is definitely the most engaged social media platform, and that's followed by Facebook, ending with Twitter and LinkedIn. You're going to want to create your really unique personality on your platforms. You can use them for different purposes, as they actually tend to be different audiences. So our personality on Twitter is going to be a lot more academic and fact-based, whereas on Facebook and Instagram, we can be a lot more casual and informative and engaging. So during a campaign, we're kind of constantly analyzing what types of content is receiving the most engagement. And we're looking at what types of content actually drive people to go to our website and make a donation. And I think the $1 million question is always, does high engagement on social media actually lead to an increased amount of donations? And I think in short, I would say not exactly. The two definitely correlate, as we've seen that higher engagement from year to year positively correlates with the amount of money we've raised. But I think it would be a big mistake to say that you can rely on social media alone and expect the donations to pile in, because they just really won't. So I have a bit of a cold, I have a little bit of a cough, so sorry if I have to cough throughout this. So for Skateistan, for us, Instagram definitely outperforms all of our other social media channels in terms of engagement. So that means that it's the place that most people are coming to perform an actual action on one of our posts. The types of posts that receive the most engagement for us are often videos of children skateboarding in different locations. And that's compared with like just posting an image or just posting some branding. We also receive more engagement across all of our platforms when we try and create additional sharing opportunities for the post itself. So that means that we try to line our best content up on days like Go Skateboarding Day or Giving Tuesday. So they're going to be shared more widely and actually reach more people. And even though the engagement rates kind of differ across all of our platforms, we do see that the types of content that are the most popular on each are usually the same. So that means like if we have the most popular video on our Instagram account during the duration of a campaign, that's oftentimes the most popular video on Facebook and oftentimes the most popular video on Twitter as well. So whether we're talking about social media, donor bases, or supporter bases, I think most importantly, you really have to know who your audiences are and how you tailor your comms methods to reach them all. So by matching a different different messages with different audience groups, you can be sure that each person is going to connect to your message and feel motivated to action and actually make a donation. We found that the best times to post for engagement are in the late afternoon, and we rarely post more than once a day. Certain social platforms have the infrastructure that you can make a donation like directly on it, and such as that's on like Facebook. If you're registered as a nonprofit, you can ask for donations on a certain post, and you can also ask for donations through Instagram stories. And even for some nonprofits, you can actually do that on YouTube as well. That's only in the US, and we can get to that later. So again, I would warn against kind of relying on these mediums to make a big fundraising impact. One tool we continually use on Facebook is to put a call out for supporters to create a Facebook fundraiser to show their support. And that's actually been a really popular way of us raising money on social media. Another really important thing to note is, sorry, another really important thing to note is audience segmentation. So this is getting a little bit more advanced here, but it's definitely a great long-term donor strategy. And so this is about like knowing your audience and making sure that your message is going to sound relevant for each individual. Beyond personalization, so that's just putting someone's name in an email for an email campaign, you can increase the relevancy of your message with specific groups, and you can use different comms tools to reach them. So let's say you've segmented your audience and you know that certain messages are going to work for a certain number of people. You know who all of those people are, and you keep them in certain groups, and you can send one message out to them, whether that's in a newsletter or email or like a paid social media marketing campaign. Skateistan has come up with 3 different marketing personas that we reach out to, and we call them Advocacy Alice, Donor Dave, and Corporate Clara. So they all have different reasons why they support us, and we make sure that we're providing them with the messaging that's going to fit their interest. For example, if we know that a personality like Advocacy Alice is passionate about girls' empowerment and skateboarding, we're going to cater our messages to her that focus on girls' empowerment and skateboarding. And next we're going on to Google for nonprofits. Okay, so Google for nonprofits, essentially, what is this? And is this going to be something that is relevant for you guys, for smaller skate organizations? And so it might not be something that you're thinking about right now, depending on the size of your organization and the amount of resources that you have in terms of time. However, I can really recommend their function, and sorry guys, my throat is so bad. I have to put a cough drop in. I'm sorry about this, everybody. It's just not going well. Okay, sorry. So Google for nonprofits. Depending on the size of your organization, it might not be something that you're thinking about right now. It might not be something that you have all of the resources for in terms of time. However, I can really recommend that their function is going to come in handy if you start to grow, and not just that, if you want to be able to make evidence-based decisions on your communications and development strategy. And it's also for free. So you can sign up, sorry guys, you can sign up for Google for nonprofits really easily. Essentially, you just go and you request an account on their website, and you just click get started. This takes really no time at all, and there's lots of help along the way from their team if you need it. And you can use your current Gmail. You don't have to create a new email or anything. You'll have access to something called Google Workspace, Google Ad Grants, and YouTube for nonprofits. And then I also really recommend signing up for Google Analytics. And I'll touch on them all really briefly right now. So Google Workspace is something that you guys actually might already have. Google Workspace lets you collaborate with Gmail, Google Docs, Calendar, Drive, and Meet. Google Ad Grants lets you attract donors and raise awareness for your organization with in-kind advertising on Google Search. So this essentially means that you have up to $10,000 to spend every month on your ad account. However, that's actually a little bit of a misleading statement, because that's actually an incredibly difficult thing to do for people with very limited experience with Google marketing. But you can always learn. Like, I've taught myself all of these really basic things to do, and it's been incredibly helpful for our organization. So I put a little example of one of these ads right in the middle here. So through our Google Ad Grants account, we were able to create this ad completely for free. We essentially, what you have the choice of creating search or display ads. So that means that when people are searching for something on Google, whether that be, let's say someone is Googling skateboarding and Sky Brown, this ad could potentially come up for people. And then people can click on it and go through right to our website. So this ad alone was seen over 25,000 times and was clicked on more than 1,000 times, which is incredibly helpful. And this was all completely for free. Having a YouTube channel for your nonprofit can reach a global audience and really amplify your cause. I really recommend creating a YouTube. If you're based in the US, you can also really make it easy for supporters to give with YouTube giving features. So that means that people can create fundraisers for your cause on YouTube, and you can also like embed the fundraiser on your channel and on certain videos that you have on your profile. And lastly, going into Google Analytics. Nice. So Google Analytics is something that you have access to that is going to track and report your website traffic. And it also lets you measure your advertising return on investment, as well as you can track your social networking sites. So all of these two graphs that you see here are from Google Analytics. And this chart on the left, the pie chart, shows us how many people actually visited the Skateistan website during a certain period of time and how they got there. So this is super helpful for us to know if people are, opening Google, searching social skateboarding, and we're seeing if Skateistan will show up that way. We can see if people are typing Skateistan into their browser and finding us that way. And we can also see if people are coming to us from another type of third-party site, as well as all of our social media sites as well. So if you actually see the graph on the top right corner, this will show the different social media platforms that sent users to our website. So before, we talked a lot about Instagram being the most important social media account for engagement in terms of actually soliciting donations and where people made donations from. Facebook actually outperformed all of the other social media channels. And the bottom right table here is from our conversion rates with social media sites and making donations. So out of all of our channels, yes, all of our other sites, all of our other platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn were somewhat successful in getting people to actually donate to us, but Facebook was the most successful at doing that. So Google for nonprofits, yay or nay? I would say definitely yay. It's good to use free resources that can create strong systems for your yearly strategy, and it's really important to find different ways to do things essentially for free that are going to give you evidence-based solutions for your year. So just going to wrap up now. I'm so sorry to everyone for this voice situation, but thanks for bearing with me. So we went over, we talked about who your audiences are and how you can tailor your messages for them. We talked about creating your content plan, and that's going to combine strategy with the ability to be reactive. We talked about what channels are the best for engagement and actually soliciting donations. and we talked about the benefits of Google for nonprofits. And thank you all for your attention. And now we're off to the second poll topic with James.
Cheers, Alyssa. Go get yourself a ginger honey tea or something, you know. Cool. So, yeah, I'll touch on diversifying funding streams and how you can do that throughout the campaign. One thing to note is that campaigns are usually what we would call unrestricted funding. So this is normally like individual giving, where people donate to your organization and you're able to assign it where it's needed most, essentially. And obviously the alternative to this is kind of more institutional funding that is normally assigned to a specific location or a program. So we will touch a bit on institutional funding, but we'll mainly focus on the individual and also corporate side of campaign funding. So diversification of funding streams can be two types. So external, basically kind of increasing the numbers of donors in each pot, so increasing your individual giving, your corporate giving, or your institutional, and the ranges of those across kind of corporations, different types of individual giving, for example, monthly or high value, and then also internal diversification, which is what we'll focus on mainly here. So what different types of ways or sources can you collect from individual giving? So what kind of avenues are there that you can explore within individual giving, within corporate giving, as well as institutional giving? So how can you structure it to work for you and cover a broad range of bases? So in terms of like external diversification, this is mainly lead generation. So creating new contacts that you would reach out to and essentially ask for support or ask for kind of long-term partnerships. So what we use is obviously these are just 3 examples, but there are many more. So Funds for NGOs is a really good resource that collects all of grant-making organizations in one place. And it also has a really good search feature. So you can look for, it might be Lebanon, for example. You can type in your context, your location, as well as your focus areas for your programs. So you can put in Lebanon, gender equality, for example, and it will show you a list of grant-making organizations for that. Another really good one is LinkedIn, and there are some opportunities for nonprofits to get free LinkedIn Premium, which I can share with you. There's a process that you have to go for to apply. That's a really good one. That just means you can contact anyone basically without having them as a connection. So that's a good one. It also works well just adding them and direct messaging them through there. And that's a really good one for looking at who they're connected with and broader networks of donors. Obviously, once you identify one really strong donor, likelihood is they have friends with similar interests, or they can point you in the right direction with people who'd be willing to support you as well. And also just research. So just spending some time, 20, 30 minutes a day, looking through kind of corporate social responsibility reports, looking at annual reports of other similar organizations, where their money came from. And it's a bit more manual and it does require a bit more time, but honestly, the more you put into this, the better your results will be. Cool, so those are the 3 main types. I'll focus on the first one now, which is individual giving, which will probably constitute most of your contributions to a fundraising campaign. So it's very important that you kind of get this right. And once you have a formula, you can kind of apply it to your campaigns. as well as outside of campaign times. So with this, you can segment your donors out. Obviously, we've talked about monthly giving. So for us, that's the citizens of Skateistan, high value donors, as well as campaign donors. So to assess what segment to place donors into, it's really important that you have a good database or history of your giving patterns. So for example, if I'm donating to an organization, say twice a year, it will be really important for that organization to know the amount I'm donating and the times that I'm donating. Maybe I only donate in the Christmas time because it's coming to the end of the tax year in the US, for example. So you'd make a note of that, and you make a note of the amount, and you would send over relevant information to this donor along the same lines of the amount they could support at. So it might be an equivalent for $50, and last campaign they donated $30 or $40. So you always want to increase it a little bit where possible, but make sure that it's quite a relevant amount to them. Another good way to do this actually is focus on the content that they might be excited about. So if they donated to your previous campaign, for example, which was just an infrastructure campaign, so you're building a new skate park or you're building a new skate school, then you'd want to be a bit dynamic with your approach to those donors. So make sure you're tailoring your content to what's interesting for your donor. Another thing to explore, and I've listed all of these kind of new asset classes, and we're definitely just exploring them, just kind of touching on how to incorporate these the best. But we have tried over the last probably year or so to touch on at least kind of one or two sources of each of these ones, for example. So something that we've just started doing, I think last Christmas, is the ability to accept stocks and shares. Obviously, throughout COVID, weirdly, loads of people got very rich. And if you have the ability to accept stocks and shares, then it's just another resource to use, and something that you can also advertise. Lots of people are actually very, very willing to donate stocks, especially if they've just gone up in value. It's not as big as an ask, or as visceral as just giving cash donations or signing a check. So many people are quite willing, and their studies have shown actually that they're more willing to donate stocks for the same amount as they would be cash. So that's something you can look into, and it's called a brokerage account, especially if you have, it's quite easy to set up, especially in the US, and we're looking into it now in the EU as well. Cryptocurrencies are another thing to look into. Quite hard to kind of incorporate, especially if you've got kind of a third-party donate form, for example. But you can create a wallet on a third-party app, something like Binance or Bitstamp, and then you just share your wallet key with people. So it doesn't have to always just be through your donate form or platform. So it's something that you can do and you can share. And likewise, lots of people are making lots of money, especially this year, on these kind of assets. So it could be worth exploring. I think the skate park project now accept Bitcoin, which is really cool. I was really stoked when I saw that, and it's something that we're looking to incorporate into our standard donate form. Another thing that we've been doing reach outs for, and of course this is all before campaign times, is we've been reaching out to YouTubers and Twitch streamers. Twitch, for those who don't know, is like a big video platform where people stream themselves playing video games. Yeah, it sounds kind of wacky, but it's really popular. And some of the biggest fundraisers last year were actually done on Twitch. So it's hard to find content that is really accessible. Obviously, there's the Tony Hawk video game that people might be streaming, but people also do stream, you know, them skating. There are some big kind of skateboarders now joining Twitch. So if you can get like a pro skate ambassador, then that might be worth reaching out to, or just kind of explaining what you do and how they can help, because they'll receive a proportion of it, but they have a really kind of active support, the core support group, who are really willing to support projects that they're backing as well. So similarly to YouTube, you get kind of influencers on YouTube or vloggers. We had one a while ago. It wasn't the biggest following, but you could really see the amount of interaction that they can get from their fans is quite remarkable, really. So definitely worth reaching out to a few interesting YouTubers. And there's loads of really nice, you know, family-friendly skate YouTubers with big followings as well that I'm sure could be interested in helping out. So endowments is quite far down the line. It's quite an advanced one, something that we've just started looking into. But it's essentially when you ask donors to contribute to an investment pool that you are able to kind of manage. So you have you know, financial advisors that kind of help you manage these types of assets and help you make kind of correct investments. It's quite high level. You probably need kind of a big pool of donors looking into, but it's something to kind of explore, you know, while you have time, or while you're just starting, because it can take quite a while to kind of figure out the best way to do these things and make the right connections. So definitely something worth looking into. Raffles is another good one. So for example, last campaign we had a cheapo watch raffle, which is really cool. And even though, you know, donors aren't necessarily motivated by receiving free things, it's a good way to also advertise the partnerships that you have, different work that your partners might be doing, and as well as just, you know, supporting them and kind of collaborating with them too. And it attracts a different donor audience that you might normally reach as well. And another really good one that Alyssa has touched on is kind of what we call peer-to-peer fundraising. And this is really effective. So sorry, things like Facebook birthday fundraisers are one of our main ones. Also people sharing our stories on Instagram, and you add a little sticker to donate to Skateistan or to your organization, for example. So on the bottom left, you can see an example of a Facebook fundraiser. And the reason these are so effective is because it's among friends. So say if you don't have like a direct relationship with a donor, you know, one of your donors does have this direct relationship that they can access and use to kind of help you out and spread into new audience bases. So you get really good kind of interaction on there as well. And there's also obviously third-party websites like GoFundMe or Kickstarter, for example. And so one thing to remember when you're doing this type of fundraising is that it's always good to provide the resources for your supporters to use. So for us, we've kind of just put together, I think it's like maybe a 10 or 15 page PDF of a fundraising kit. So it makes suggestions of different fundraising events. Obviously, it used to be more focused on like in-person fundraisers, kind of skate competitions, like you know, different film screenings or selling product, for example. And now it's kind of more tailored for online fundraising. So just making sure that they have a pack, they have video assets that they need, they have photos that they can use, and they have the kind of correct messaging so they know how to talk about your organization. And it's not too different to how, you know, you want to be represented in the public. Cool. So next slide, please. Yeah. Thank you. Actually, Rhiannon, sorry, could you skip really quickly to slide 17? Just to go back on the individual one. Oh no, sorry, to keep going forward to the topic B. slide 17. Yeah, next one. Yeah, this one. So when you're creating these kind of donate pages, it's really important to obviously have your donate form right at the top, a donate button that's linking to it. So if it's a third-party one, and if you're deciding which ones to choose, make sure that it's a very clear form that requires like minimal information, so that if people are advertising to their friends, it doesn't take too long to collect this kind of information. Another good thing that works very well with like donor psychology is to have a progress bar. And one thing that I've kind of researched is that you'd receive the most amount of donations when your bar is around 60 to 80% full. So that's a good technique to use. And one thing that we would try and do before a campaign is make sure that we have like active pledges towards the campaign. Say if you're trying to raise 20 grand and someone's already pledged like 2 or 3 grand, the quicker you can get out of the first half of the progress bar, the quicker you can progress the campaign to the next stages. And it also makes some donors feel a bit special, like you've reached out before, you've gone public with your campaign, they've made a commitment. It kind of builds trust with different donors as well, and promotes individuals to give more when they know that there's always support kind of backing them up as well. Cool. Another thing, sorry, to think about is like the presets on your donate form. So you'll see in the top right, these are the ones that we use at the moment. So 50, 100, and 250. Obviously, they're a bit higher than our like average donation that we would expect. But that's just to hope. Basically, you want everyone who would be donating $20 to consider donating 50. Like at least they have to think about it. And we'd obviously provide really relevant equivalents to this. So, it might be like $50 can provide, lunches to our back to school students in Afghanistan for 3 days. So just make sure that all the presets you have on there are very relevant to your equivalents that you've provided. Cool. Sorry about that. Can you go back to its corporate? So yeah, one more. Yeah, thank you. So another really good revenue stream is corporate donations. For this is quite reliant on just doing your research around different CSR policies that different organizations have. Obviously, they have things that are in line with their kind of strategic mission. So you want to really try and tailor your approach as much as possible to what that corporate supports. So it may be a geographical location that they're really interested in, for example. It might be that they're really interested in working in Palestine or South America. So you can make sure if you work in multiple locations that you're focusing on that. And also different content that they may be interested in seeing or looking at, as well as what impact they may like to have. The thing is, it's quite time consuming, but they really give you all of the answers. Like all of the keywords will be in there. Maybe it's like green or ethical or sustainable or conflict free. So just make sure that you're tailoring your approaches and your programs to their needs. But you've got to stay true to your mission. Obviously, you don't want to bend over backwards and make all these concessions that you morally kind of have an objection to at a later date. So yeah, make sure you're telling the truth, but also down their path. Another thing to consider, which can work really well, is having a matching gifts. So if a corporate partner pledges to support you, say at like the $1,000 level, you can then advertise this to your individual donors that, for the next week or for the next $1,000 that goes towards our campaign, it will be matched by our partner organization. It's really good publicity for the partner organizations to kind of show their support and have a bit more of exposure on your platforms, as well as their platforms. If they have a bigger following than you, it can be invaluable kind of support if they promoting that as well. So you're kind of attacking it from all angles. And yeah, it gives you a chance to highlight current partnerships, builds trust, shows your history and your loyalty to other corporate partners, and attracts new corporate partnerships as well. Yeah, and another form of doing these kind of partnerships is obviously kind of collaborations. So it could be like a co-branding thing that you do, and it could be a product, as we see here, these three examples. So the skate pal, for example, with Cheapo, the collab deck with Almost that we have, and a bit of a smaller one, but still really important, is a hardware manufacturer as well. So these are the kinds of like industry aligned revenue collaborations that you can look at doing. You have to make sure that it's worth your time. They can be quite time consuming. So anything you can do in advance, like putting together kind of a support package, or full of your logos, full of your messaging, full of your calls to action that you'd be happy for them to use, will save you a bunch of time. And you want to make sure you have a good idea, or at least a vague commitment to what they would expect to raise from these kinds of partnerships. So say if they can raise $2,000, you want to kind of focus out your time and make sure that it's not too much work for you at that level. Cool. Next slide, please. And then the final one, which is foundations and governments. So this would typically be more restricted funding, and usually at a larger level. So obviously with that larger level and commitment comes more responsibilities. So you might have to do a bit more reporting. They might want more detailed budgets. They'll probably want more detailed impact metrics. So how you're measuring your program success and failures as well, which is really important. So at the bottom, you can see three kind of different resources that we use that saves us a bunch of time. So you just want to make sure that you're streamlining all of these resources into one place, so that if you are able to get a connection with a grant making organization, you can just send lots of these, make sure you have a phone call with them, follow up with these kind of resources, or if you're doing outreach, kind of connect with them over email and include a few of these resources, just so they know that you are, you're conscious of these different factors, essentially. So this kind of funding would be very important to longer campaigns. So probably not just your normal like 6-week campaign, but it might be like 2 or 3 months or 6 months, where you're really looking at building a new skate school or a skate park in a new country or a new location. So it could also be supporting programs. Maybe you're launching a new program. Maybe you're launching a girls only class. You then tailor your content to supporters who are interested in those programmatic elements. So these longer campaigns are what we call capital campaigns, and it's basically where you have a focused goal that you're aiming for, and it's normally quite it's essentially a bit of a bigger target. So for these ones, you have different stages. Where to start with, you'd be doing outreach to foundational donors, and it wouldn't be public facing. It would be kind of behind closed doors. You'd be doing this outreach, and then the second stage would be to introduce the campaign to your individual donors. So I know, for example, Make Life Skate Life are really good at this. They'll secure a few thousand in support from kind of corporate donors or foundational donors, and then when they launch their campaign, they'll have a certain amount already in there, already committed to the campaign, and then they'll ask for individual donations and reach out to their networks as well. So this is something that we might do if we're looking at a completely new skate school in a new location, for example, to make sure that we have a good balance of diversity going towards that campaign. Yeah, and I guess tailoring your video content is very important, making sure you have relevant photos for these kinds of what we call toolkits. And a grant toolkit is really useful. It's what you can use. Essentially, all of the grants kind of follow a similar structure. So it might be sustainability, it might be methodology. So you can make sure that you can kind of do a copy and paste job as well as making it a bit more personal. It just saves a lot of time. Great. So I think that's it for my section now. So we're going to have a bit of a breakout rooms where we can all kind of come together and share what's been working for your organization. And yeah, we'd really love to hear about different things that perhaps we haven't considered or we haven't touched upon in this presentation so far. So yeah, I think we're going to launch the breakout rooms, and yeah, one of us will join each one.
So you should all have, yeah, you should be getting a little message about going to a breakout room. Let me know if you haven't.
I mean, this would also, sorry, Monique, were you gonna?
Oh no, please finish your sentence and I'll.
Oh no, I was gonna say if you actually don't work in fundraising in your social skate organization, but just have other ideas, or you've seen really interesting things that other organizations that have done, we can also talk about those in here as well.
So I'm in the beginning phases, and I'll share a sort of strategy that I implemented, not with social skating, but that I thought could work if I just worked on the actual concept and maybe just adapted it to social skating. And that was offering workshops, online workshops, and then having like a start-off fee for it, and then people can donate more than that to it. Initially, we were even just looking for 20, 25, because it was naturally on Zoom as well. But then we realized that it could go, it's very expansive and there is no limit on it. So that worked really well because you're offering something, and it's a very simple access, gateway. Almost anyone can participate, and I find that's often, and I know that big donations should often, you want bigger donations, right? But in engaging people who maybe can't donate bigger sums, we're engaging just a different clientele. And so essentially offering workshops so I know that Skateistan works with creativity, and that was the workshop that we did. It was the art of mindful making, and the entry level was just £20 as a start off, and just to see how that went. And I'd say 50% of the people donated 20, just paid the £20, and then we had the remaining 50% donate more than that. So it was an invitation for anyone to participate, do you know? Because I know when I speak to people about fundraising, sometimes I can even I feel like not shy, but I kind of go in towards myself because I don't want people to feel like, I feel like people are being asked for enough already, especially in our current climate. And so instead of just letting people go into themselves, we're offering something that makes anyone feel like they can participate in positive change, no matter what that looks like.
That's such a cool idea. Do you mind, how many times did you offer that? Was that just once or twice, or?
Monthly. So we did it monthly. We haven't done it in the last few months, in the last 3 months, just because we were re-looking at that model and seeing if we can maybe even offer, because it was live naturally, but we saw that some people were requesting the recording. How much people actually going through that recording after it was sent is, a different question. But we were thinking maybe we could sell it as a pre-packaged. So this is your donation, and then you get this workshop that you can move in through your own time if you aren't. Yeah. So then that also alleviates pressure on us to be present and active. When you're in a live workshop, it's 2 hours, 90 minutes, but there's the before, there's the after, there's the energy expenditure in, and if you're a small team, that's a lot. So we were thinking perhaps to sell it as so that's what we're doing in the 3 months. But to answer your question, we did it monthly.
Very cool. I think that's kind of the magic spots to find in all of this is when you are a small team and you don't have all of the resources, what are the processes that you can make that are going to just do the work for you? And I think if you've created this monthly program, that seems like a very helpful way to expect your donations. Nice. Any fundraising, any other tips or anything that's worked for anyone? I guess it doesn't have to be social skateboarding if it's in any.
I've got a little tip, depending on where you are in the world, there is some type of businesses that sometimes do a reward system. So I think we have this burger place called Grilled, and they have, when customers go there, they can buy the burger and then they get a token, and then there's 3 charities that you can put the token in, and at the end of the 3 months or the month period, then they will donate a certain amount of money depending on how many tokens you have. So if you're in, I think the UK do it at one of the supermarkets that starts with W, I think. But in Australia, we have certain companies that will have that token system. So that's one way of getting revenue into your programs.
Nice. And so that's something that exists already in Australia. And so you find out about it, and then do you have to apply to it to be one of the kind of listed charities, and then that's how it works?
Yeah, so it's run by the businesses, but you just apply through them. So they'll have their own charity or charity giving sector within the company, and then you can just apply with it. So in Australia, it's quite simple. The brands are quite proud to announce that they're giving money away to these charities. So it's part of their PR campaign. So it's simply just going to that store and asking, can I please have an application form to fill out to be a part of this? So the company in England is called Waitrose. That's the one if anybody else is in England. That's one way you could, potentially get some money.
Really cool. Thanks for that, Mark.
I don't know if Johnny has got audio working, but Johnny from We Skate Mongu has a cool fundraiser that they just launched. Maybe he wants to talk about that, but I don't know. Johnny, are you there? Maybe he's busy doing something. But check it out, We Skate Mongu. They have a bunch of their. Oh, there we go. Hey.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
Doing well, Johnny.
Sorry, I'll drive it. So we're currently running a fundraiser where we've got some of the boats made from wooden planks and suitcase wood. The kids made those, and we're currently selling them to raise some money in order to like help us with park maintenance and just run Skateboarding, and half of the money will go towards the kids' well-being, their school fees, and everything like that.
I wasn't able to get too much.
I'll share a link there. The kids, there's like a bunch of handmade skateboards from the kids that We Skate Mongo works with, and they're raffling them off to support the organization as well as the schooling for the kids. I'll put it in the chat. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Johnny. Sorry we weren't able to hear you too well in the audio.
Oh, sorry. I'm driving, so.
No worries. All right, I think that is the end of our time for the breakout room. I think we can all leave it and we'll go into a bit of a discussion with them. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everyone. I guess the, oh, this is the same. This is our breakout group, I think, or maybe.
I think people should be coming back, but they may be still finishing up talking because it was closing in a minute. So they'll probably be coming in here.
No worries. We'll give everybody some time to just come back.
There we go.
Nice. I think everyone is making their way back now to this room. Thanks everyone so much for your participation in that discussion. We talked about some really cool things in our group. I think for the interest of time, maybe we'll just share one thing from each group, one tip from each group, and then move on to some questions that you guys may have for James and I. So from my group, is there anyone that would like to share what they shared with the group? If not, Monique, I really liked your, or Mark, there we go.
I just shared a tip that in Australia we have certain businesses that will, if the general public goes and buys a product from them, that they get a token and they get to choose between like certain different social or community groups that they can put their token in, and at the end of the month or whatever time they'll donate a certain amount of profits from that company towards that charity or that fundraising. So I think depending on where you are in the world, maybe there is some type of businesses that you can team up with and say, hey, if we give you a certain amount of customers, then can you share in your profits? And that's one way that we get a little bit of money to run some of our programs.
Thanks so much for that, Mark. And from the second group, someone from James's group.
Troy, do you want to share a bit about the merchandising with CJF?
Sure. We spoke, a bit about whether or not merchandise is worth it for a skate NGO. And me and Ruby basically agreed that while it's not super lucrative, it may be good for like sort of marketing and engagement perspective, and it's also a really good way to secure partnerships. Yeah. And yeah, if you can sort of automate your, or have like a very efficient system of shipping out, say once a week or so, it might prove fruitful.
Nice. Thanks for that, Troy. So for the last, I think we have about 15 minutes or so. We don't want to go over time here. We'll leave this time for any big questions that that anybody has for James or I, or for anybody else that has said something for the duration of our presentation. We might go with the hand raise, or maybe in the chat if everybody doesn't want to.
Putting my hand up. It took me a minute to find it. I have a question. I didn't hear it covered, but I think it was James. Sorry, James is talking quite a bit about like tracking donor histories and stuff, and like, oh, if this person gave this amount at this time of year, like, you know, then you follow up. But like, how can people track that sort of thing? Like, what are the options, and are these like easy to use? Are they affordable? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about what everyone else is using, because we transitioned from just like Excel spreadsheets in like 2016 or 2017, I think. So before that, everything was just on an Excel sheet every time we received a donation. So I think we did it weekly, and we download all of the donations that we were getting, and just put them on an Excel sheet. And if you start recognizing like different donors, then you make a little note about when they're giving, how much they're giving, and you kind of take time each week just to compare those two documents. And then in 2017, we started using Salesforce, which is like how we kind of store all of our like donor information. But yeah, that can be very time consuming to like set up and use. So yeah, I'd be really keen to hear like what kind of works for you guys as well, and if there are any like tips that you have with like keeping track of all of your donations. Does anyone have anyone, because I know some people in our group were talking about using DonorBox, for example, which is like a third party platform, and they have the donate form already kind of sorted for you, and kind of collects information. So does anyone else use DonorBox or a different one maybe?
People are too shy.
If people are shy, that's okay.
Yeah.
No worries. If we can take a different question. If
Alyssa, may I? Just it's not a reflection of like, I don't know, a participation or engagement, but rather like, for me personally, I feels like I'm in the beginning phases rather. So it's very simple. I just use Excel at the moment, and I think I'm here to learn and hear what is being used and what people are doing. I'm very foundation level at the moment still.
I mean, I mentioned this in our group chat, but I mean the breakout room, but I highly recommend DonorBox. It's basically free to use. It's super intuitive. It collects a lot of data for you, automatically, by campaign, by donation, by donor, by donation type, etc. And they also have a really active development team. and they add features all the time. So it basically provides you just with a widget that you can put on any website, and it's basically free. So if you haven't checked out that alternative, I highly recommend doing so.
Nice. So it sounds like the stages between, if you're kind of on the Excel stage right now, there are some almost free tools that you can use to help you create your processes and all of your audience and donor segmentation. Nice.
Maybe one thing that I would add and also could ask about is like DonorBox doesn't have a system for active constituent relationship management. Like it doesn't really allow you to send messages through the platform or such, or get alarms when you haven't say been in contact with someone. So we currently just have an Excel for, you know, the nudges that James spoke about. So like if you haven't spoken to a stakeholder in say 4 months, you can see that it's time to like reach out and say what's up. But if anyone or potentially James knows of a software or like some kind of website where that could be perhaps done more efficiently or optimized or automized, that would be super interesting to hear about.
Sorry, just like emailing donors and reaching out to them once you've got
yeah, what I'd love to have is a system where like automatically somehow, I don't know if this is even possible, if you haven't been in touch with someone for a long period of time, you'd get notified, and then you know, you have that knowledge that, hey, I should reach out to these people and see what's up. Or how do you do that at Skateistan? Maybe is a better question.
Yeah, so we use a couple of different tools. I mean, one of the main ones that we use is obviously just like our monthly newsletter. So it gives kind of updates across all of the skate schools and on all of the different programs. And you know, people can sign up for that via the website. So that's more of like a regular kind of update that we do. Then when it comes time to like doing campaigns, we have a separate list of basically donors who have given to past campaigns. And so as long as they don't unsubscribe from, you know, one of those lists, they'll stay on the communication like cycle basically. So there are a few good tools. One we use is called Campaign Monitor, which is where you can like email lists of different donors, and you can also do like different segments of how much they gave or where they're based. And another one which is a bit more accessible is it's an add-on to Google Sheets called Not Another Mail Merge, and you can just click it, and in your sheet, if say you have like a list of 100 people, then it will either like send to all of them, or you can put it in different sheets. Yeah, exactly. It's like MailChimp Campaign Monitor, and so that's how you just make sure people don't fall off too much. And one thing that's quite good to do on Excel sheets is just have like a little column saying like last time contacted. So next time you go onto it, if you've got them all in one sheet, you can just you can like sort it by that date column, just to make sure that people don't fall off the radar basically. Yeah.
Thanks.
Clara has her hand up.
Yes, hi, hello. Yeah, I'm more from a corporate funder kind of point of view, that I thought it might be interesting to share just how we experience fundraising and just our relationship with partners in general. So I work for the Skate Room. I just added a little note in the chat in case you don't know about us. But one thing that with the experience we really found really valuable in our funding and our support to organization and partnership is measuring impact and the reports that are able to being shared afterwards I know there is a session after later today, so I would really recommend if maybe you're, because we realize, of course, for smaller grassroots project, it's not always possible because of resources, time, money, tools to build impact measurement reports and stuff. But for us, it really is an element that we are finding more and more essential before, you know, we are speaking or we are committing to partnering with certain social skate organizations. So I would really like encourage everyone to kind of start looking into that. Like we work with Free Movement, with Concrete Jungle Foundation, with Skateistan, and we have to say their reporting is crucial in the way that we can also know what we contribute to, and then also share that internally with our team and with our community, our audience at the skate room. So that's one thing I would really want to highlight in a corporate kind of point of view, how important that can be. And then, I just think in general, if you can, adapt your time and resources as well, depending on the significance of a financial support, of a funding from a corporate donor or from any donor, basically, that's always also that creates like more deeper relationships and trust, and it just makes it really more valuable also, just as relationships that you can feel like, okay, we are doing an effort on our side, and we also feel that the organization can do so as well in being adapting your input and resources when talking to certain donors. So yeah, that was just a little highlight. And as I said, just reach out to us if you don't know us yet. Reach out to me on my email, and I'd be happy to get in touch. And then we'll be talking later today at the last panel. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Clara. What are the main impact measurements that you are interested in? You think? Attendance, yeah. I guess.
That's a very good question. So I think attendance definitely is one of the most essential one, understanding, but this also depends if you are including programming in your activities or not. That's also one point that I think we value a lot as well, is programming, of course. But so yeah, attendance, then there is attendance and unique participation. You communicate that it's important to also explain your measures, like what are you communicating to your donors. And then of course, and I know it's sometimes difficult to track, but the indirect impact it can have on the communities around you. So it's great to talk about the quantitative data that you can see through your programs directly with the beneficiaries. But then if you can also grasp like how it has actually benefited the local communities or the families, or just even the countries that you work in, that with the Olympics and all of this, like this has there is such a thriving community now in the social skate world. And I think if you can explain and really prove how this has a lot of indirect benefits on society, that is of course like even and best. And I don't know in practice how you can put that into place, there is surveys or testimonials, but definitely there is a range of different data that you can try to measure, and that would make it even more interesting on a donor's perspective to understand, like, okay, we are actually reaching this amount of indirectly reaching this amount of beneficiaries through the programs that we support, but this has impact on local employment, on languages that they learn, on there is so many different also indirect benefits. If you can measure that, that's really a bonus, I would really say. But the minimum would definitely be like the reach, weekly reach, the demographics of participants, what different nationalities you're working with. Sometimes it's a lot more nationalities than you would expect, and that also has a lot of indirect benefits in like social cohesion, inclusion, all different metrics. The more metrics the better, I would say.
I just want to jump in super quickly. I didn't find the button for the hand, so I'm just jumping in. Sorry about that. But yeah, one thing that we noticed is that even though you're small, it really makes sense to start collecting data as soon as possible, because when you grow even a little bit, it's super nice to be able to, compare data to what you started out with, and that shows also growth to potential donors, and it also gives you an opportunity to compare how you're doing in terms of your impact, if it's improving or not, or we're identifying problems and such. So even though you're small, I suggest starting as soon as possible.
Great point. Thanks for that, Troy. And thanks so much, Clara. Also a really perfect segue into the session later on today on measuring impact. I think we are out of time for our session. Thanks everyone so much for joining. This was a really awesome, fruitful discussion. We can let you know our emails. I think they were in the presentation, but I'm Alyssa at skateistan.org. and James is james@skateistan.org. If you want to ask us any questions, feel free to reach out. That's no problem. Oh yeah, we put it in the chat. That's perfect. And Alyssa, nice. All right, thanks everyone so much. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your days.